Hello and welcome everyone to Across the Ditch with myself, Carrie Marie, and the lovely Kelly O'Shea in Tasmania.
Hi guys.
And today we've got a treat for you. We are going to be exploring how to move in complete alignment with your values, because when we don't, as we'll explore, it can lead us to feeling like we're living life on the handbrake, with the handbrake on. So we are going to explore how to use values to help us to move forward with ease and flow in our lives, and we feel good about ourselves too. Would you like to add something towards that, Kate? I know you love this topic, and I know that you have an amazing why this is so important to share with our listeners.
Absolutely, I love this topic. Values are not, there's nothing that, I haven't always been aware of, and I haven't always seen their importance in my life. But, I really understand now that the importance of values to help me grow as a person and to develop into the person that I want to be and that I want to be seen as. And I really, values are really important to me. Yeah. And if I can find it, I have an awesome quote here that I want to read by Tony Robbins. And he says that it's important to learn what your values are so that you'll be able to direct, motivate, and you support yourself to the deepest level. All right, now I love that because it really touches on the importance of values are about you, not about anyone else. And they're about you. And yeah, I love values. How about you, Carrie?
Values are amazing. Understanding them, and I'm going to admit I find it really challenging to understand my own values, but in understanding them, it's helped me to really know myself a little bit better, and also understand that actually the inner conflicts of, okay, why am I not moving forward in this area of my life? And it's simply because there's a conflict internally that I'm not aware of, and I'm unconsciously putting something of higher importance in front of something else, which is what something I really want, but I don't know that I'm valuing something of more importance. And it's been really useful for me to be able to see, okay, well, actually, that's not useful for me. So exploring this is really it's an amazing journey. So
it is.
It's really important actually to be able to understand these things, because if we're living with that conflict, we're never going to live a life of fulfillment.
No.
So that, I think for me, that's why this is so important, because if you're constantly living in conflict within, we're not going to experience that deep sense of fulfillment, contentment, peace within ourselves to have the life that we really want and be the person that we really want.
It is, yeah. And I think, that touching on the importance of when you are creating or learning or your values, that you're not just touching on words that sound fancy. These values have to connect with you. And it's like what Carrie said, if they don't, then there's that conflict. And you're not going to be able to move forward. So, yeah.
So let's talk a bit about what a value is. Now, my understanding of what a value is it's an unconscious belief. So at some point we've decided something, and then we believed it to be true, and it's something that and it's a belief that is related to what is good or bad, right or wrong in our lives, and it's happening, like all beliefs, on the unconscious level. So these programs, as we've discussed before when we talked about beliefs, come from society. They come from our parents, our friends and peers, the media, celebrities, people of influence, they come to us through all those areas. And sometimes a value that we might hold dear, we'll let go of because it doesn't fit with a value of a group that we might be in. And so if we can maintain that value, we'd not get accepted. So we'll swap and change beliefs and values to suit us in a given situation.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's okay, isn't it, Carrie, to change your values.
Absolutely.
You know, I think, you know, that's something that I definitely, yeah.
Absolutely. But what happens is most of the time it's unconscious. We don't know that we're doing it. It's like it's not always a positive thing. For example, if we find ourselves in a group of people who value, not intentionally, but perhaps have a low standard of dress, then if you come in with a high value of how you present yourself, you're not going to fit into that group. So you might lower that standard, that value, to fit in. You might have a belief then that, oh, I can't have this high standard because it means I'm different. It means I'm not liked. It's what we make these things mean that's really important as well. And when we get clear on that, it's like, well, where did this value come from? I mean, we can go down that road too. Where does this value come from? Is this serving me in what I want to achieve right now? But we don't even have that option until we understand what's driving your current life experience. So it's bringing that awareness. So what we'd like to do today is actually bring your awareness to what's actually driving you right now and creating the experience, the lifestyle as you know it now.
Absolutely, you know, and just adding on that, you know, for me, my own beliefs and my values are my own beliefs that remind me of what's important to me, you know, and they remind me, and I want to show that in my behavior, you know, in knowing and understanding what's right and wrong. And, you know, the big one for me is to help me to grow and to continue to move forward. Yeah. And that's why I'm learning how important values are. And again, you know, how important it is to be aware of when you're changing them to suit other people, which is what Carrie just talked about. You know, not being blindsided and think that that's okay or whatever. Just be aware of when you're doing that and why you're doing that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And what I'd like to share actually is a bit of a personal example too, because I came across values quite a few years ago now. In fact, it's when I started to explore network marketing. I was like, I didn't have much income coming in. I was like, I need to be able to expand, but I didn't want to work for someone. I didn't mind working for people, but I want to have more freedom, more time freedom. I want to be able to earn more for my time. So I was looking at network marketing as a vehicle to perhaps get me there. And I remember when I first signed up, I got some coaching around values. It was the first time I really thought about it. And it was really interesting what came up, because most of the values that I valued did not support a life of freedom or financial abundance. And there were things like comfort, security. What else was on there? Responsibility was on there, I think. Integrity, honesty. So some of them would support me, but most of them would not support me in creating a viable business and a life full of freedom, because the values of security versus freedom, they don't match. And this is something to be really mindful of. Because like another word for freedom might be adventure. Adventure would actually be more appropriate, you know, because like if you're going for adventure or freedom, there's uncertainty there. Uncertainty does not give you a feeling of safety or security or comfort. So I was constantly valuing, not unconsciously, constantly valuing comfort. I wanted to stay with what was familiar to me. Going online wasn't familiar to me. Taking photographs and selfies of me was not familiar to me. Doing videos wasn't comfortable or familiar to me. putting myself out there to my friends and family using Facebook. I hadn't used Facebook in like 8 years. I signed up for it to keep in touch with people I'd met in New Zealand, and I hadn't used it since. And so using those things was not for me, it was not comfortable. And I kept wanting to lean back into what I knew, what was comfortable. And that was why. But I didn't know that until we actually talked and looked at that. And then it's like, okay, understanding that, it's like, okay, well, what values do I need to believe in? What values do I need instead to help me grow? Back then, I don't think they really taught that actually you could change them. It's like they more like said, oh, this is what you kind of got.
Yeah.
And so I didn't feel empowered enough to change them and to take action towards, okay, what if I'm looking at freedom, what values do I actually need to support that? And therefore, what actions and what beliefs do I need to support that?
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that. I love that example. Thank you for sharing that, Carrie. Because, that really, installed in me in that conversation, listening to you, how important it is when you're listing your values to see if there's any conflicting, words there that are conflicting and that are really gonna just, not work together. And I love that. Yes, so thank you. That was really, profound in the fact that it made me glance down on my list. And I'm already like, no, that's great. Thank you, Carrie.
Pleasure. And I trust that was valuable to those that are listening as well. But so the good news is we can change them. But the first thing we need to do, before any kind of change, is become aware of what values are driving you right now. And in what order of importance are they? What order of importance are they for you? Because you'll be acting upon that. For example, honesty and friendship might be two values that you hold dear. Now, for someone who puts honesty before friendship, they won't ever lie to their friends. But for someone who values friendship more than honesty, they might lie to their friends to keep the friendship.
Wow. Yeah.
So same
wow, I wonder how
values,
many
but
people
ordered
now.
differently.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because, like I said, this is why we can sometimes have the same values, but we apply them in a completely different way. And it's simply because we're valuing one thing more highly than someone else.
And I, again, just everything that's coming out of your mouth this morning is just like, wow, like when you talking about, valuing friendship and honesty, and then you're like, well, okay, you value friendship more, so, it's okay maybe to lie a little bit because you want to keep that friendship, and that that really made me think about even now how I'm listing my values, changing the way I'm listing them so that they are kind of folding into each other, not really making that one a little bit negative or conflicting, but folding into each other. Yeah, no, that's great. Again, something else that I'm going to work on. Thank you, Carrie.
Beautiful. It's a work in progress. I'm still working on my values too. So, and this is the thing too.
It is.
As you change, as you grow, your values will also change. And we have different values depending on our areas of life. So we'll have one set of values for our relationships, another one for how we see our environment, another one for how we see our work and our work relationships, another one for our family, one for our health and finances. So we have different values for different areas. And within that too, we might also have, and this is shared by Stephen Covey actually in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, is he in a way, he talks about values of different areas, and he talks about if you center or have more value in a certain area, then you will make decisions based on how that impacts the others. So, or not based on how it impacts us, but you'll place one thing and that'll have an ongoing effect down on into your finances or social or whatever it is. So knowing your values is really important. And we'll talk more about Stephen Covey in a future episode. That's a whole other kettle of fish.
Maybe we're not going to give too much away. Maybe.
No, we'll talk about in another conversation.
I think it's important. Absolutely. I think it's important that we understand what you mentioned there, that we can have different values, or we need to have different values for our different areas. Our work, my values in my personal life and my work are very different because they're very different environments.
Exactly.
And then, family, so I think, and you don't have to have, like a gazillion to eat, like Carrie said or mentioned. If you have an even number, then I guess it's like if you think of a circle, and if you have more values for one, then your circle is not going to be a complete circle. It's going to have an output, and then it's going to not really work as well as it should. So I think that's really important to what's the word? To align, to make sure that your values align. I don't know if that's the right word, Carrie, but yeah.
Align is a great word, especially talking about aligning with what it is that you actually want. Because the values need to align with what you actually want to experience and give you a way of being able to see, okay, well, this is how I approach. And I'd like to give an example, if I may, to make it clear about the different values you might have in a personal space and a workspace. And you already shared this, actually, Carrie, that you do. So maybe you can add to this too. So, for example, in a personal relationship, you might value things like love, joy, playfulness. But work, well, that's not really going to serve you. But things like discipline, reliability, learning might be things that support you in an environment at work, because it's going to be important to constantly develop yourself, to be reliable if someone wants something from you, that you can deliver on that. For instance, maybe you can expand on perhaps your own personal experience around this as well.
I am absolutely, and I've seen the difference there in the value, but then one word that keeps coming up for me that I find I've got in both my personal and my work, and that is respect. Like in my personal values, that's high for me, respect for myself. And then in my work, it's definitely respect for myself, but then it adds on to respect for those that I work with. But I definitely have a different list for each area. And I think at the end of the day, it makes it flows better when you allow that. Because I find if I try and bring my personal values over to my work, then there's conflict. So I think that's really important to be able to separate those values in that way. Yeah,
I love how you shared that too. And also I love how you shared that you have the same value in each of those areas, but there's slight differences. That might be something that comes up. We'll give you an exercise too about how to actually go ahead and determine your values, and then how to hierarchy them so you can see how you are driven.
Absolutely.
And so when you said that, it's really cool. You said, okay, respect is something that's in both areas, but there's differences there. So you might find there's some core values for you as well. But just know that, okay, what does that mean to you in each circumstance? That you can actually see the subtleties within your values and your belief system. That's so cool. Thank you for sharing that, Kelly. That's so
you're
valuable.
Welcome. Yeah. And I just what you said there, I think it's important, and it's something that I really only learned lately, is hierarchying my values, to you know, not just having them on a piece of paper everywhere, but actually listing them in the order.
Yeah.
And again, you know, so that they complement each other. Because, you know, like you had that friendship and the honesty. You know, if they don't complement each other, then they really shouldn't be up there together. You know, and so I think that's really important. And then, Carrie, how do we, and I'm not sure if you mentioned it before, but how do we create this hierarchy of list? What is a method that we can use?
So Tony Robbins shares in the book Unlimited Power this simple exercise to determine what your current values are and therefore what your current drivers are for your current experience. So first of all, he starts with asking this question: what's most important to you about a certain aspect of your life? So we'll use a personal relationship as an example. So what's most important to you about a personal relationship, or X? Now, the person may answer something along the lines, and I'm going to use his example here. He might say support. You might say, cool, great. So what's important about support? So you want to question each one that you come up with and say, what's important about Y? What's important about Z? What's important about A? And you know, it doesn't matter how big your list is. You just keep going until you don't have any more. Okay.
I love that.
In this example, he gives just three things. So he gives support as the first one. The most important thing about support is that it shows that someone loves me. And what's most important about someone loving them? It creates a feeling of joy. So joy would be the third one. So the first one's support, the second one's love, the third one is joy. And then he goes on to hierarchy this list by simply asking to compare two of those things. So he'll compare what's most important to you between joy and love. And a person might say, joy. Joy is more important to me. Great. And then he'll compare love. Sorry. So joy or love. Oh, sorry, I've done this wrong. Let me go back a little bit. So first compare, first of all, joy with support. And the person says joy. Great. So joy goes at the top out of those two. Beautiful. Then he'll say, so what's more important to you, joy or love? And the person says joy. Great. So joy goes on top of all three. The next thing he wants to do is to identify which comes next. Is it love or support? And the person might say love, which will automatically put support as the next one. Now, if you've got a bigger list, you simply go through, you have list joy. So say you've got 5 more, you go through each one and go, which one is more important to me? Joy or this one? Joy or that one? Joy or this? Joy or that? And when you've got one that's more important than joy, you put that at the top.
I love that.
And so you keep going through and comparing until you've got your list.
Yeah. Then the key question is, what's most important?
What's most important? And when you're comparing,
most important? I love that. Yeah. And you can do that with any size list, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how big your list is, how small your list is, you can narrow it down and put it in the hierarchy of order. That I love that. And I love how really simple it is to do that. Yeah. You don't have to overthink it. You know, you just make them important, and that's great.
So it's this is important. So this identifies your current drivers, your current belief system, your value system. And like we said before, you can change it. So if you find that you've got conflicts in there, you find that actually there's some things in there that are stopping you from living your ideal life and feeling empowered and fulfilled, then it's looking at, okay, what values do I need to have that I don't currently have that would fit better? And changing them out and playing with that. What does that look like? What does that feel like? Because I was explaining to you earlier, when I'm trying to be a self-employed entrepreneur, comfort is not going to cut it.
No.
Comfort and security and safety and all those things do not cut it. You're not gonna learn, you're not gonna grow, you're not gonna try new things, step out of your comfort zone with those kinds of values. So it's just being really honest with yourself and being okay if they don't fit right now with your ideal self or with your ideal lifestyle. Awareness is 95% of the work. What I'd like to invite people to do actually is come into the group, Empowering You Book Club, Facebook, so it's facebook.com/groups/Empowering You Book Club. Do this exercise, share with us your results. What are your thoughts on it? Are there some values that are conflicting in there? Are there things that you want to change but you're not too sure how? We're here to support you, and we're best in the group because it's a place where we interact with everyone who's in there. You can post, you can message us, and we are totally right there with you on your journey to becoming your empowered ultimate self.
Absolutely. And, can I just add in there, people understand that both you and I, Carrie, we're coming from our own experience here. My values are changing right in this moment, having this conversation with you. I'm already what's most important. I've written that down. I'm going to go through my values and I'm going to hierarchy them. So, be assured that this is coming from our own personal experience. We're learning and we're expanding and we're growing and we're developing as people, and that's what we want to support you to do as well. And that's really important to us.
And what I love is that they're not set in stone.
No, absolutely.
They're not set in stone. You're not stuck with them. If something's not working for you, it's all good. We can change it. Like we shared in an earlier episode, you can choose your lies. You can choose your beliefs that you choose to tell yourself. You can choose that. And what precedes that belief is a decision. You have to decide that actually, you know what? I want this to be true for me and I'm going to make it so.
And a lot of people that is scary, when they're told that. But and I know we've talked about it in our previous podcast. For me, it all comes down to responsibility. Responsibility for my values and living my values and being my values and living up to my values. But again, it's absolutely fantabulous to know and phenomenal that I'm able to change them. They're not set in stone, and so I don't have to feel negative towards myself if there's one value that I'm not holding up to. I need to question that and maybe change that. And that is comforting for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's and for some of us, like for me, the word responsibility, and I'll be probably open here, that freaks me out sometimes, even now, responsibility. So I don't use that word so much. And I've written my values of it I wrote it out, but then I combined it with, one value is congruency, actually applying what I'm learning so that I can show others, here's the result.
Yeah.
I can say honestly, this has worked for me. This is what I've done.
Yeah.
And also being reliable. For example, showing up here every Sunday morning to have these conversations. I can see that I'm reliable, but to do that takes responsibility. I have to be responsible for getting up on time, for managing my energy and showing up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's there. The responsibility is still there, but it's not the prominent, predominating thing. It's underneath these other things which I'm also showing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can still have those values, but just label them differently.
Absolutely. And again, you touched on it there in that the word, it can just be a word, but it can mean something different to someone else's meaning of that word. Like the responsibility for me is high up on my list because I look at it as I'm taking responsibility for myself. I'm not making anyone else responsible. And that's what responsibility means for me.
Yeah.
And I think that's important for people to, if you're sharing your values and, someone else has theirs a little bit higher than yours, that doesn't matter because they may see that value in a different perspective. Or they may be seeing it in their personal life, maybe their work or their business, So it's important not to get caught up in comparing your list to other people or their hierarchy of order, you know, it doesn't make you any bigger, any smaller, any more important than anyone else, because they're your values. And that's what I really want everyone to understand and know. They're your values, no one else's.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you introduced that about comparing yourself to someone else and comparing their values to your values is actually pointless. All you need to compare to is what were your values yesterday, and are the values that you have today more in alignment with where you want to go in the future.
Absolutely.
That's the only thing you need to compare. What were they like yesterday? Are they better today? Are they more in alignment with who you want to be tomorrow? And if they are, great, keep working on getting them closer to that, because that's where you're heading. And what else is doing? They're on their own journey, their own track, their own story.
Absolutely, you know, and you know, when you're making that hierarchy, you know, the magic question is, which is more important? Well, I'm thinking then, you know, like if you're looking at your list, you can ask yourself, is that still important to me? Where am I looking at that now? You know, if you're questioning a word, it doesn't mean you let it go. You just maybe change where it is on your list. You know, and yeah, I think that's important to understand as well, that you don't, I mean, you may want to, and that's totally fine, but you don't have to necessarily get rid of it or let it go completely, because it may still be a core value of yours. You're just changing where it is on your list of hierarchy. Yeah,
that's also a great point. But yes, it might still be useful, but maybe not as useful as, say, a different value or another value that's also in your list. So reorganizing and then living to that importance.
Yeah, and I know that for me, I have found that changing of hierarchy as I continue to grow and develop. You know, the values that I had up there, I was going into this adventure and now moved down, and I've got new ones that are up there because I'm there and they serve their purpose, but they're still important to me. So they're not as high up now, but they're still there.
Beautiful. I love that. Thank you for sharing. That's so powerful.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah.
Beautiful. Now I'm just become aware of the time, and I know that you said you have to be off early this time, so we'd like to wrap up there. So just a reminder, have a go at the values elicitation strategy that we gave you. So where you work out what your values are by asking yourself what is most important, and then going through that list, comparing one value with another until you get that's the one that's most important, and put that at the top of your list. And then do the same thing again with the other values, working out which of those is the most important and putting that on the second, and so on and so forth until you've gone through your whole list. And you know exactly what's driving you now, and you can see exactly where your conflicts are, if there are any. And then you're in a position where you can look at that and go, does that still serve me? And if not, maybe I need to get rid of that. Maybe I'll replace it with something else. And share with us in the group, www.facebook.com/groups/empowering you book club, your results. And if you have any questions, if you'd like any assistance or support, reach out to us through Messenger. We're more than happy to help you out.
Absolutely. Always.
Yeah, keep you moving on. Okay, thank you so much for listening. Hope you got value out of
Thank
this.
you.
Thank you, Kelly.
And thank you, Carrie. All right, bye, guys.
Bye.